Hi folks, HR Funk here, out with number 27 in my series on Law Enforcement Qualification Course Challenge videos. Now if you've not seen any of this series up to this point, what I'm attempting to do is to fire a law enforcement firearms qualification course from each of the 50 states for the purpose of comparing and contrasting those courses and ultimately determining what I think is the best law enforcement firearms qualification course in the country. Now this series does focus on duty handguns, and today's duty handgun is going to be our first repeat appearance since I started the series. Today's course comes to us from the state of Missouri. Missouri uses a 60-round course of fire to qualify police officers in that state, and the course is divided into 6 different stages. Those stages take place at distances as close as 1 yard from the target and as far away as 25 yards from the target. The course has a 70% qualification standard, which means at the end of the course, I have to have 42 of the 60 rounds that I'm about to fire inside the proper scoring area of the target. Missouri does authorize a couple of different targets for use for police officer qualification. The one that I have here is the B27 target. And in order for shots to count in this course, they have to be inside the 8 ring on the B27. The course does specify that if a shot completely breaks the scoring ring, that does count as a hit, but if it does not completely break the ring, then that is a miss, as well as everything outside of the 8 ring is also a miss. Now, as I said a little while ago, today's challenger is the first firearm to make a return appearance in one of these qualification challenge videos. This is once again the 4-inch Smith & Wesson Model 19 Combat Magnum, chambered for the .357 Magnum cartridge. And if you're wondering why I'm using the 4-inch Model 19 again, the reason is simple. The gentleman who sent me the course description and the target requested that I shoot the course with the 4-inch Model 19. Now, it didn't take a lot of arm twisting on his part because I'm pretty much always up for shooting a combat Magnum. Now, one thing I am going to do to change things up today, as opposed to the last time I used this revolver, is I'm changing the ammunition. The last time around, I fired the Model 19 with plus P 38 special ammunition. This time, I'm going to be using full power 158 grain .357 Magnum ammunition. In fact, I'm using Perfecta factory ammunition as I shoot my way through this course. So hopefully it'll perform well in the revolver, and the revolver will hopefully perform well on this Missouri law enforcement handgun qualification course. And here we go, folks. The first stage of this Missouri course begins at a distance of 1 yard from the target. From here, the shooter begins with the firearm secured in the holster, and on a signal to fire, the shooter has to draw, assume a tuck firing position, and fire 2 rounds into the body of the target in a time limit of 2 seconds. That drill is then repeated 2 times, so when I'm all done, I will have fired 6 rounds during this stage. And there's the first 6 rounds of the course. All of them are easily inside the 8 ring. So now it's time to move on to stage 2, and we'll see how things go from there. Stage 2 of this Missouri qualification course takes place at a distance of 3 yards from the target. And from this distance, I actually fire 4 drills. The first 2 are going to be dominant hand only, and both of those require me to fire 3 rounds inside of that 8 ring within a time limit of 3 seconds. The second 2 are going to be non-dominant hand only, and for those, I fire 2 rounds into the 8 ring of the target within a time limit of 2 seconds. The dominant hand only drill is repeated 1 time. The non-dominant hand only drills are repeated 2 times. So both ways, I'm going to be firing 6 rounds with my dominant hand only and 6 rounds with my non-dominant hand only. Now, the course description does give the instructor conducting this qualification an option on how to have the shooter begin the stage. The shooter can either begin with the firearm secured in the holster or can begin this stage in a ready position. I'm going to do it each way. For my dominant hand only shooting, I'm going to start with the revolver in the holster, and on a signal to fire, I'll draw and fire out my shots dominant hand only. For the non-dominant hand stage, I'm going to start in the ready position and fire those shots from that ready position when I get the signal to fire. So here we go, let's see how stage 2 goes. For stage 3, I'm back to a distance of 5 yards from the target. And from that distance, I fire 2 different drills. The first one is the same exact non-dominant hand drill that I just fired at 3 yards. On the signal to fire, I have to fire 2 rounds into the body of the target. In a time limit of 3 seconds, that drill is repeated 3 times. The second drill is a failure drill. For that one, I begin with the firearm secured in the holster. On a signal to fire, I have to draw and fire 2 rounds into the body and 1 round into the head in a time limit of 3 seconds. And recoil got me on 1 round that time, folks. I think this was in the first failure drill. I managed to put 1 round in the 7 ring, but the other shots are all good. The 2 headshots are good. This one tried to make it off, but it's still on there. So on we go to stage number 4. For stage 4, I've moved back to 7 yards from the target. From here, I fire 2 consecutive failure drills. Firearm begins in the holster. On the signal to fire, I have 4 seconds this time to fire 2 shots into the body and 1 shot into the head. Stage 5 is fired from a distance of 15 yards from the target, and this requires the shooter to fire from behind a barricade. On the signal to fire, the shooter has to draw and fire 6 rounds inside that 8 ring of the target while maintaining a position behind cover. After the 6 rounds are fired, the shooter has to reload, take a kneeling position behind cover, and then fire 6 more rounds into the target, all within a time limit of 30 seconds. And the timer got me on that very last shot, folks, so that's one more that's not going to count toward qualification. It's time now to move back to 25 yards for the sixth and final stage. The final stage of this Missouri qualification course also requires a shooter to fire from a position of cover. This time, on the signal to fire, I have to draw, assume a position of cover on the right side of the barricade and fire 6 rounds into the target, then perform a mandatory reload, move to the left side of cover, and fire an additional 6 rounds at the target, all in a time limit of 40 seconds. Now, I am able to use my strong hand regardless of which side of cover I'm firing from, but I have to fire from both sides. So here we go. Well, folks, I guess if you shoot enough of these courses, sooner or later you're going to have a stage that's just a mess, and that 25-yard stage was one for me. Now, the good news is all the shots that I fired are in the proper scoring area of the target, so at least my accuracy was pretty good. But I miscounted the rounds when I fired my first string from the strong side of the barricade, and I actually dumped a live round out on the ground. I only fired 5 rounds from there. And when I got to the left side of the barricade, I didn't get all my shots off in time, so my last shot doesn't count since the timer beeped before I got the shot off. So even though all the shots are where they're supposed to be on the target that I fired, I still lose 2 shots from back there. The good news is the course is done, and other than that 1 shot in the 7 ring and those 2 shots, everything else is good. Now, it doesn't help matters out here today that I've got a winter storm on the way in. I don't know if you can hear the wind blowing or not, but I'm freezing out here, so that doesn't really help when you're trying to fire accurate shots or shoot your way through a qualification course. So in the end, this Missouri course was pretty challenging, at least under the conditions I'm shooting in out here today. I did manage a score of 95%, so under the Missouri standards, I still managed to qualify. So I'm happy about that. That way I'm not going to have to reshoot the course out here during a snowstorm. There was a lot going on in this course. There was dominant and non-dominant hand shooting. There were multiple failure drills. There was some long distance shooting. There was shooting from alternate positions. So it'll be interesting when I plug this course into my evaluation protocol to see exactly how it stacks up against these other courses that I've already fired. And here's one last look at today's challenger, the 4-inch Model 19 Smith&Wesson Combat Magnum. Today being fired with full power 357 Magnum ammunition. That is a little bit different ride than when I was using the 38 Special Plus Ps the last time around. Even so, I still managed to score a 95%, so the revolver didn't let me down. I let it down a couple of times with what you saw in some of these stages. And that's the video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you order anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it's good for 5% off anything you buy from Optics Planet. See you next time, folks. And until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.